Good morning. I'm sitting here asking myself, what's most important? And I'm asking God, tell me what's most important. Is it how much people say, or is it how much people do? Can you tell me? Is it how much people say, or how much people do? I don't like to use the word or the words, I don't know, because I'm a firm believer that we will always know something. We may not know everything about a particular topic or interest, subject, situation, circumstance, but we know something. And even if it was just, you know, a little indirectly, we know something, which is why I lean more to saying, I'm just a little puzzled. Never confused, but just a little puzzled. So this brings me to talk about this period in time in my life when myself and another one of my friends at the time, Lisa Dean, we got together often and worked on music and, you know, did background vocals. And I mean, I write background vocals and so forth and produced a couple of songs at her studio, but we got together pretty often. And we did that during the time that I was married. And, you know, everybody's not going to be just so apt to like everybody that you like. They're just not. And that's okay because one way or another, we would just have to look at what would be the importance. What would be the importance? But here's the thing. Sometimes when friends get together, and just like we were friends, we were open in dialogue, open in communication. And I didn't take anything, as a negative that came from her regarding any portion of what she saw in my life or what was connected to me. And sometimes we need to hear what another person may be saying or viewing or observing, you know, about, how we are in connection with someone else or in connection with a project or whatever. And she was open with me about her thoughts about my relationship. And you know what? That was cool because she was absolutely correct. So I could today say still, thank you. Thank you so much because she didn't hold anything back. And I cherished our friendship, even though there were times that, we weren't together and she was doing her thing and doing her magazine and I mean her comic book and some other music projects and stuff like that. But we would always kind of sort of find some time, and then every now and then I would just give her a call. And I think the last time that I don't know if I spoke to her, but I just dropped downtown where she lived and just I was in the area just walking and I said, let me stop in and see. And I did. And I don't think she got on the phone. She just sent a phone number downstairs. But I didn't call. I didn't call back. I didn't feel that I should. And then the thing is, COVID was like kind of on the rise at the time, or just blowing up. And that would have been a good reason for why lots of people didn't want to entertain anyone. And I don't mean entertain in the sense of let's get some drinks and coffee, but even just see anybody in their home, because COVID was this new thing and people were kind of just leaving here, dropping like flies. So, understandably so, that we couldn't see each other. But just to know that she was okay to a degree, because I didn't talk to her, I didn't see her face, I just got a number. But in my heart of hearts, it was like, don't call right now. Don't call right now. So, what was most important? The fact that I got on the bus and went down and I got off. I was like, let me just go and see. What wasn't important was the follow up. And in my heart of hearts, I got the number. But prior to getting the number, it was like, well, she doesn't want to see nobody. And, thank you for coming, that kind of thing. And then the number came. And it kind of touched me a little bit. And yes, I know that it was COVID. But then even when I got the number, just in who I am and putting things before God, I felt like it wasn't the right thing for me to do, to follow up with that. And if there needed to be a follow up, maybe it should have come from, or would come from, the other side, meaning that she might reach out. But I have to say this: cherish the times. Great, great times. A lot of friends of hers and friends of mine, mutual, in the industry, and just cool like that. And she cared about health. She cared about health. She cared about me. That she would give me this beautiful vegan cookbook called Mosewood. And I am so sorry to say that there have been some things going on in my life where things are just walking out of the door. And that was a gift she gave to me. I think it was for my birthday. And thank you. Cherished times, cherished moments. What was most important? That time that we spent, literally. And we went to some of the same schools and so forth, and we just had fun. But we also worked our tails off. And when I did PT, I did it right there in her studio. And when I did office romance, it was right there in her studio. Cherished moments, cherished times. And then all of a sudden, we just were someplace else. But isn't that how life happens? It happens. It happens. Not everybody is going to be with us always, or not everybody's going to be with you always. There are times when we're together, and there will be times when we will not be together. But what we can pull out of what the experiences were will determine, or can determine, what was really important and what wasn't. So I pulled out a lot of stuff, and I spoke a little bit about it today, So from that, I'm going to move on for a moment to another person, a sister that I grew up with in church, Lisa Thompson. We went to the same church. We also worked on the same job, and that would be Harlem Hospital. And we accept people as they are. And it's not that we move to change anybody, because for me, this is just me, only God is able to change people. But accepting of who she was and thinking that she was accepting of who I was, to the point that our friendship, our relationship, church wise, and then just neighborhood comrades, would be stellar, or at least on the up and up. So, what was most important? Truth was most important. And I kind of thought that that is what we had. And we did. We did for a while. I believed that truth is what we had. But then what happens is that things come and things go. Just like life comes and goes. Just like night turns into day and day turns into night. Change is always happening. We don't always know what triggers change. But what's most important? If we can maintain a sense of truth about who we are to each other, and even if we note our differences, let's note them. And in truth, if there's an issue, let's deal with it. Let's deal with it. So that when crisis comes, we're thinking one way, like she would never do that. He would never do that. We don't, in fact, we don't even say those things because they're not even in our mind. If we can be, the provider, or the resource to someone else's crisis, or the source to halt a crisis in somebody else's life, are we really thinking at that moment that, oh, they're not going to do this or they're not going to do that? We're not even thinking about things that pertain to what they will and will not do, especially that are just crazy, given the fact that we are friends. But I'm here to say that what matters the most is the fact that somebody met a need in the midst of a crisis. And as that need was met to a woman with 3 children, but only 2 were with her at the time, what came out of it was also painfully important. Painfully important. And sometimes people's view of what goes on, even if it's with someone that you think loves you or cares for you or cared for you or loved you, their view is sometimes tainted because maybe somebody else is meeting another need with them, to the point that it encourages them to do some things that are just foul and just ratchet. And you're standing there like I was, not really understanding like what is really going on, but feeling the effects, affects, and effects of everything. But God says that He brings provision to the vision. So if the vision was for her to have a crisis or a need met, it was met. But how she responded to the provider was totally out of sync with what the real purpose was, or the intent was, as it was expressed by her. It was heartfelt. And there it was, a cleaned out, painted, freshly painted apartment. It wasn't given to her. No one said she could have it. but it was to meet a need. But at the same time, another need was being met. And we just happened to have the same name. So, what was most important? Was it the crisis? Her need in crisis that was met, that she could stand and be in truth about everything? Or was it most important that there was a need in crisis greater than what she represented to me, that actually spelled out that maybe the crisis really wasn't as deep as we were told that it was, but that there was some perks on the other side? And I know for sure that there were, because anytime you're handed a dispossessed notice for nearly $3,000, that you would go from paying $1,000 rent, at least that was what was told, to $387. And you would stay there for 2 years or so and not say anything about it, but hand the person who provided you an answer to the need or met the need in crisis. That means that overall, there was a total intent above and beyond the crisis or the need in crisis that was presented. And anytime children are involved, most people would be like, wow, if I can, wow. Especially if you know the person, you know the family, you know everybody, pretty much, the core family. But to be met with that, and then to be asked the question, can you bring your mom here? That kind of threw me off. Like, what would I do that for when I'm caring for her in another place that's more conducive for her best recovery? You see, where we were in terms of my growing up and mom's being there since the 50s, 60s, 50s, 60s, there was a layer of staircases, or a staircase in the front, one going up and a small into the building, and then one in the back. So a wheelchair wouldn't work. Not for me by myself at 5'3". It wouldn't work. And then elevators not consistently running. And then not only that, management not willing to accommodate. And every time a transfer was put in, or a request for a transfer, it was denied. And when you have family dynamics going on and things are happening in terms of trying to avoid stuff, a transfer would be one of the best resolves. But the people in management, they never would approve it. So, what was most important? Lisa Thompson got her need in crisis met. But she also got another need met on the flip side of it. To speak about what that would be, it's not much that I can say other than that the brunt of what was done while I was there in terms of non-payment was left to me. Left to me. But then not only that, here we are years later. And I'm recalling when I called her mom and I said, what do I do? Because I don't feel right just putting her out like that, what do I do? And her mom said to me, throw her out. I know exactly what she's doing. And I also went to our pastor, Lisa, take back the apartment. So I did my due diligence because my heart, and then to stand there and her hand me something like that crushed me, crushed me. And here it is. There were those, that knew exactly what was going on. And then when I think of like just 10 or 12 years before, inviting her to come to my show at the bitter end, and then one of my other cousins being there at the bitter end, and their connection with each other. Maybe at that time they did not know each other, but they came to know each other. And you know what? When like minds get together, and you see sometimes things do not always come out right away. So here we are, some now 20 years or more later. But we see a grand dynamic of how these two got together, along with one other actor in the play. And he happened to be my ex-husband today, working on the same job. But he came after I left. But when I look back and I think about how I got a phone call one day, it's like, oh, well, what did you do to him? What? What did you do to him? He just couldn't stop talking. And you know, at the time, you're not putting two and two together because it wasn't important at that time. It wasn't. It just seemed like she had care and concern for that issue more than the issue of crisis that was met for her. That she would call me and ask that question. And I didn't talk a whole lot about the goings on between him and myself. And of course, we were friends. But certainly there was some talk, maybe between them. So even with all of that, what was important for her to know? Was it really important for her to know what happened? Well, the answers come later on today. Later on today. So imagine three. Three. In this way. So, what was most important? For me to find out? Or was it more important for me to keep my sanity? Or maybe it was a dual play where I needed to find out. But in the midst of trying to find out, or the process of finding out ensued, my sanity was rocked. Not just once, but a couple of times. Because the evidence of what was really important involving these three people was just so illuminated. Oh my God. And what could I say? It's a terrible thing when somebody takes a valued outcome. You see, people will put together a valued outcome amongst them. So if you are the target, the target person very, very much or expressly present and instrumental in the valued outcome of something, people will do whatever they do, think nothing of it, and let it go away. So even in all of that, with a mentality rocked, trying to function and do the things that need to be done, you know, trying to survive and making strides, especially with things that started a long time ago, and, trying to keep them alive, just trying to, and still being connected to a few. But now the light is there. And imagine that valued outcome was expressly to make me be gone so that I could never have a clear mind. And the talk would be, oh, she's not there. You know how you hear that a lot? Oh, they're not there in their mind. They're not, oh, she's always had this or he's always had that. That kind of talk comes out of people's agenda sometimes, especially when they absolutely know that at the start of something, it was never like that. So if it was agendized and an end result came out, they would have a choice to make of what was important and what was not important. So if there's heightened talk of something that's seemingly a negative, because when we look at people who suffer from different things, whether or not it's cancer, diabetes, hypertension, blood clots, liver disease, pancreatic cancer, retina problems, glaucoma, Tourette syndrome, Parkinson's disease, Prader-Willis, all kinds of syndromes, fetal alcohol syndrome. When we look at what people suffer, those are things that are looked at or can be looked at as negative because they can bring about degradation to the body, the mind, and the emotions, and to the spirit. Those are hard things to handle sometimes. But when you find people that will engage with a valued outcome, you see, they would be the ones with a valued outcome going on based on their interactions with each other and their goal at the end of it all. So in other words, if it was to make you go crazy, or if it was to make it look like you have been in a state of craze all the time, but they actually know that that's not true, all you have to do is listen to the conversation. Listen to how far it goes. Listen to how wide it spreads. Look at who's doing it. And then look at the very dynamics that took place from day one to day 20,000. God says one day is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is as one day. So imagine over a span of time going through a bunch of stuff, trying to figure out what was important, what is important, and what isn't. But we know that mental stability, mental ease is important. And we also know that the good that we do, heartfelt, heartstrung, is important. But sometimes people know that there's good that has been done, but that good is override or overridden or overwritten by whatever their goal would be, their agenda would be towards that valued outcome. So you mean to tell me that somebody got value out of seeing somebody hurt? Do you mean to tell me that someone got a value, a great value, out of seeing somebody just unstable for a season? Do you mean to tell me that somebody got great value? What profit a man to gain the whole world but to lose his soul? So what is that value? For them it was, yeah, perhaps. Or now we can do this, or now we can do that. But there was nothing that remotely attached itself in what they did to the pain, the hurt, the degradation, the financial downtrodden of those who were the ones who originally met the need that they had in crisis. So imagine how folks get together. Could it have been partially by that one show at the bitter end? And then that tay-to-tay thing between Lisa and Pam took off? I think so. And then that other tay-to-tay with Lisa and Carl, did that take off? Yeah. The question was asked, what did you do to him? But I was married to him. And she wasn't. And the other Lisa, I was married to him. And she wasn't. And Pamela, she was at the wedding. At least I know the reception. I got married to him. And she knew, and she knows. And even with all of that, to blurt out in a court of law, well, about him, who sat next to her, my ex-husband, she knew, and she knows. But to blurt out about my brother, well, we don't even know where he is. What was important and what was not important. And then to flip it and know that I went to visit one October just a couple of years ago. And her husband said to me, we don't even know who that person is. Corey. So how is it that one doesn't know, but one knows? What was most important? And where were we? This last hurrah, we were in a court of law. So is it strange or not strange that people connect in various ways? And the things that they say sometimes are more important than what we could ever imagine. We just don't know at that time. And sometimes we just don't put 2 and 2, 2 and 3, 3 and 4 together. But what stands out after time is that valued outcome that they were looking for, and how it is that it plays out or can play out from that time to this time forward. And who rises to the top in support and just going, digging, trying to keep stuff like it is, going for the more. So what's more important? Is it that I cared? Was I stupid for caring? Was I dumb for making that decision? Somebody tell me more. Was I crazy to answer her question What did you do to him? But I was married to him. But she might have been in it for the more. And my God, there are three of us: Lisa, 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 and then the neighbor next door. Oh my God, that means four. And then the one above in 4G. She was a Lisa that did it. I can't take no more. Somebody said, is this real? Oh, yes, it is. And to know, in that apartment upstairs, for years and years, there used to be a man who beat his wife or his girlfriend all the time. All the time. The yelling and the screaming and the screaming and the yelling and the... What would the neighbors think? What could they say? What was most important? And if it was something that they heard or that they thought, could they have just knocked on the door? But when people have an agenda, a valued outcome, you won't get that rap on the door. It may just play out somewhere at the end. Just because it rises to the top. And pulls people in for another's support. But thank God, there are lots of holes, even though we may not be able to address them properly at the time. But somewhere, somehow down the line, it is God who sees it. He knows it. He's El Roi. And you want to know something? Still hurtful, painful. Oh my God. Can't see everybody. Can't put your hands on them. But we know that they're still doing things. But rest assured, it's just a matter, the end, a matter of time. So what's more important? A little while ago, I was crying. I cried. And every now and then, I'm just like, wow, oh my God. The times. Sometimes we've had cherished, and other times just indifferent, just poor. But you know what? Some things in life we can change, and some things in life we just cannot. But just to see at least the two of them right there side by side together in court, minus Lisa Thompson. God, boop, he scored. But we know, in fact, what was most important and what it is that we have to do to maintain stability, mental ease, to continue to move forward and embrace what God has that equates to abundant life, that equates to the more. This is Elise signing out. What's most important?